últimas romântic.
Hello and welcome to Skimo Gold. This is the premier podcast and YouTube show for ski mountaineering interviews and race analysis. I'm Travis Macy, and I'm joined today by the one and only Katie Friend, coming in from Switzerland. Katie is the longtime race commentary voice of ski mountaineering, and we are breaking down two recent World Cup events. We're talking about the vertical that happened in Andorra a couple weeks ago, and more recently, just this past weekend in Boí Taüll, Spain, were the sprint and the mixed relay race. We're giving you all the details, all the action, thoughts on Team USA leading into the Olympics, and more. Big thanks to Camp for supporting Skimo Gold. Camp has been there at the start with Skimo, and still seeing a lot of Camp packs out there on the World Cup circuit. Big thanks also to Dynafit and Pomoka. These pink Pomoka skins, if you're into Skimo like I am, the pink skins are part of your daily driving routine, and I call it driving because that is where the rubber hits the road. Just like tires are important on any bike, climbing skins are crucial on the skis. They're what connect you to the ground, and Pomoka is a solid choice. All right, it's time to roll on Skimo Gold. Lady friend, welcome back to Skimo Gold. It is great to be here with you as always. We're recording this here on February 3rd. A lot has happened in the world of elite ski mountaineering in the last week and a half or so. More is coming with the Olympics very soon, but right now we're focusing on the action that's occurred recently. We had a vertical World Cup race in Andorra, and then a week later there was a sprint and a mixed relay in Boí Taüll in Spain. Katie, what have you been up to, and where were you on the ground and in the commentary booth over the last couple of weeks?
Well, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind. I wasn't actually supposed to be commentating any of those races, and due to various things happening all over, I ended up commentating. Well, I was supposed to be commentating for the Andorran sprint while I was in England. So that was all a very quick setup. And then, of course, it got cancelled. So I didn't. And then I was in Boí Taüll as the race announcer for the first time in nearly 5 years on this weekend just been. And then again, there was a change in the schedule, and the person that was replacing me then couldn't do it. So I had to I did the qualifications as the race announcer for the sprint, and then I moved into the studio as the commentator, and then I was fully on the ground, right in the spirit of it, for the vertical on a very beautiful day on Sunday.
All righty. Well, way to go. Here and there and everywhere. You were displaying the ultra mindset of this and that and the other. So way to go. And you know, and the athletes had to have some of that flexibility as well as we get into, first of all, the vertical race in Andorra. I got to interview Italian Giulia Murata, who is getting ready for the Olympics. And just before that Andorra race, she was reflecting on how much she loves Andorra. And it was one of her first World Cups as a junior athlete. She loves the travel. She actually mentioned she loved the shopping. Julia's interview is coming out with Skimo Gold on February 7th. So they, of course, went there. The vertical happened one day. It looked like under beautiful weather. And then that night, just a huge snowstorm. I saw some footage. It completely trashed the course for the sprint, and they just couldn't do the race because all the everything, all the flagging, and it was just shredded apart. So they got to do the vert, and I tell you what, watching these races, both Andorra and then Spain the following week, just great to see a bunch of snow. Here we are in the American West. It's been a very dry winter throughout, and it's fantastic to see that other parts of the world are getting good snow. Athletes are skiing in snow. It's making for dynamic conditions. Hopefully, this is maybe some of that same snow has hit Italy, but it's been fun to watch.
Well, hot news off the press. It is snowing in Bormio right now. I can tell you that from direct from the horse's mouth, from someone who's already on the ground. And yeah, it's crazy because every time we go to the Pyrenees, it's feast or famine. We're either like strips of artificial snow up the side of the mountain, being desperately held onto by the amazing organizing committee there, or we're just in both of those places. Both of them have amazing organizing committees, or we're just absolutely like bombarded with snow. And yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot of snow in the Pyrenees.
Well, that's great. Snow coming. It was funny. I had just a friend here in Colorado. A fellow parent was asking the other day, "Do they have enough snow for the Olympics?" And looking here in Colorado, it looks like a desert, but yeah, sounds like there's enough snow. So that's good for all types of winter activities coming up here in
Exactly.
the Olympics. Well, let's get into this vertical race in Andorra. This was the second to last weekend of January, again, just before the storm. Well, let's get right into the results of the vertical race in Andorra. On the women's side, we had, as usual, at the front of the pack, Axel Gachet-Molleret, 31:44. Second place was Emily Harrop, also of France, 55 seconds back. And third was Sarah Dreyer of Austria, 113 back. We're seeing some familiar names on the podium there, and also on the men's side. First place was Remy Bonnet of Switzerland, 27:21. I saw a good little post-race interview of Remy where he said he was feeling quite sick and he just wanted to do what was needed to win. And boy, there's the sign of someone on the top of the game. He did what was needed. He wasn't feeling great, but he still held off Austria's Paul Verbniak by 9 seconds. And third was Matteo Sostizo of Italy. 33 seconds back. And for our American audience, where are the Americans? Well, here they are. In the women's, 17th was Sarah Burke, and 22nd place was Haley Hafman. And on the men's side, a few very strong performances. Sixth place, Cam Smith. He was 104 back from Remy. Communicated with Cam after the race. He was pumped about that. I think a good sign of fitness going into the big events of the year. 11th place was John Rowan, and 24th was Griffin Briley. And especially, Cam was ahead of a number of big names, including Thibaut Anselme, and it was good to see that for Cam getting some momentum. Katie, did you have any thoughts on those vertical results?
I did. For the women, I mean, it's just it's extraordinary how these women can, obviously Axel Gachet-Molleret, I think we talked about this last time, the queen of the vertical and the individual and so on. And Sarah Dreyer, a very strong vertical specialist from Austria who just a few years ago, she's a primary school teacher. She was doing this for a bit of fun, got better and better, and has just gone from strength to strength. And, you can't see it in this particular race, but has made massive strides in her skiing and is just a really strong competitor. But Emily Harrop, and then Margot Ravinel and Julia Morada, who were second, fourth, and fifth, respectively. Again, I mean, extraordinary that they can do the same, the vertical and do so well in the vertical and the sprint at the same time. Well, on the same season as etc. So yeah, but just I think for Axel and Remy, I kind of often wonder, does it get a bit boring? Like, I know it's not boring winning. I'm sure it's not boring winning, but like to be that far ahead and that good, and for most people to just expect you to win? It must be boring's maybe not the right word, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, I do what you mean, and it's interesting, and it's it's fascinating. We see that sometimes in other sports where an athlete is just very dominant for quite some time. You've got all of these athletes; they're all training like pros, they're all working so hard, and then there's something else at the top that just sets someone apart, and it is, from a fan standpoint. On the one hand, you could say like, oh, I wish that something else might happen. On the other hand, there's like this appreciation of excellence and like, wow, something special to see someone or some people so dominant. It's kind of like watching Tadej Pogacar out there on the bike, and almost every race he tries to win, he wins, even against the other
mm-hmm,
best athletes in the world. And that's what these two are doing, and it does. We've heard this question. I've heard some chatter, sort of even in sort of the running circles about like, is Skimo in the Olympics even legit when we've got, two of the best athletes here in Remy and Axel that aren't even competing? And yes, it'd be great if they were competing. And I think maybe they will in the future, if the other disciplines are added.
mm-hmm,
But I will add, and I've done a little digging on data. I want to support the case Skimo is legit with the athletes who are competing. So a couple of very small case studies. Number one, Sarah Burke, as I said, she was 17th in this vertical in Andorra. The week after that, she was back home in the States. She did a big vertical in Whitefish, Montana, and crushed everyone. She got the win out there, and it's just evidence of like, okay, maybe you're not right at the front in the World Cup, but you come back on the very competitive domestic scene here in the U.S. and she's out there that winning. And then another example. We did a little bit of training data last time with Remy Bonnet's summer training. Here's Paul Verbniak, what he was up to last summer. I digged in on Strava, so many people may know. In addition to a Skimo Olympian and Skimo professional for Austria, Paul is a pro cyclist with the Little Trek development team. So last year, in the last week of May 2025, you see these spikes on Strava, and I'm like, what did Paul do this week? Well, that week was 22 hours on the bike. It was 548 miles, and it was 40,000 vertical feet. That was in the Alps Isère Tour. So, this is a big time professional cycling race. He had another big jump a couple weeks before that, the Tour of Hungary, another huge race with the pro peloton. That one, again, 22 hours on the bike isn't that big, but it is at that intensity. That was 585 miles and 28,000 feet. And then July 7th, he did the Tour of Austria. This one, again, 498 miles, 21 hours, and 50,000 vertical feet of riding. And you look on Strava, you see these other names, big names of pro riders, Sean Quinn, etc. So the point is like, this is super legit. These are big time athletes who are some of the fittest in the world, and right
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
now, Paul has a pretty good day. He's still behind Remy, who's a little sick, but like, this guy's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I hadn't noticed when I saw that result that it was his first senior podium in the vertical, because he
Mm.
was such a dominant force in the under 18s and then the under 20s that I'd kind of forgotten that he hadn't quite got there during, in the vertical in the under 23s, or in the senior category. So it's an extraordinary result for him, for sure, especially as he's training so hard for the relay discipline, which is very different. Matteo Sestizzo as well, same age as Paul Verbniak, so two young athletes there on the finish line, on the podium, sorry, and haven't seen him up that far up for a while either. And I wanted to also mention in the women, well, let's stick with the men. Samuel Eki, who is a sort of a big time long distance kind of Pierramenta guy, has really, had a comeback, but just nice to see him up there as well. Antonio Alcalde, back on the the top 5. Cam, was he 6th?
Yeah,
Cameron.
Cam Smith, 6th place. Yeah.
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 Nice. I hadn't even noticed. And I know you
Yeah.
said it a minute ago, but I was like, yeah, it's really cool. And then in the women, a couple of names I wanted to point out, because the vertical does lend itself to athletes from other disciplines. And Mela Nossa of Spain and Lucille Germain of France, both very good trail runners. So really nice to see them up there in the top 10 as well.
Always exciting, and all these athletes, they went all the way to Andorra, did one race, which is enough. So I'm excited to share, as I said, Julia Morata's interview talking about Andorra. And Julia, I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Julia's dad is her coach, which I think is totally awesome. So I hope they had a fun family trip, maybe even a little bit of shopping. I've only been to Andorra once. I didn't see the shopping. Katie, have you seen shopping there?
I was the race announcer in Andorra for 8 years in a row, and I can confirm there is good shopping, but also the organizing committee there, they're just amazing. They've always been amazing. They've always been really at the forefront of Skimo, just very visionary, I guess. I did the first ever Skimo live stream from the top of the vertical there in 2018, I think. Just me and the local Catalan speaker being race announcers and live streaming, just crouched over a laptop because we had a big screen, but we couldn't see it because it was so bright. And it just felt really thrilling and exciting because Jaume Esteve, who used to be the president there, who very sadly died a few years ago, he was like, no, we've got to get this out to the public. And the vertical race in Andorra it's a cracking course. It's really, it's windy up through the trees, and then it kind of comes right out onto beside the ski slopes. And athletes, I remember, I think it was Werner Marty once told me that it's an absolute killer because it's full of false summits. You think you're there and you're not. You think you're there and you're not. And it just keeps giving. And then the last bit just kicks up. And I remember actually one of the most exciting finishes I ever saw. I think Cam came in 3rd behind Robert Antonioli a few years ago. And it was just unbelievably exciting because he, I guess he hadn't come from nowhere, but it was the biggest sort of result he'd had. And, at that time, Robert Antonioli was like the man to beat. And it's just always such an amazing event. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thanks so much. I'm like getting chills. I mean, listeners, if you have a chance to go to Andorra, it's this awesome little country in the winter or in the summer, like, geez, the mountains and these mystical roads for cycling. I mean, I wasn't there very long, but I remember driving around and there's just pro cyclists everywhere in their team kits and really cool mountain running races, just these awesome villages, especially compared to anything you'd see here in the US. It's a blast from the past. It's beautiful. So yeah, cheers to Andorra. And as we move forward, cheers to another one of my favorite places in the world. This is northern Spain, Catalonia, Boí Taüll, to be specific, the ski area. And again, watching this on TV, this was a week later. So just this past weekend, World Cup event with a sprint and a mixed relay. Again, my experience watching it, there was a lot of snow. There was a lot of really close racing that we'll see in the results. It's another, so-called high altitude event, which I like. It's at about 2,020 meters at the bottom, which is somewhere around 6,600 feet in elevation. So, over in Europe, that's relatively high elevation. Katie, what did you think? Overview of the event, the environment, et cetera. A lot of energy. I know the Spanish athletes were pumped. Your co-commentator, Mireia Moreau, from Catalonia, I could tell she was exciting. Ana Alonso's back, looking fit. What do you think about Boí Taüll, Katie?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to say. So I'll try and keep it succinct. So Boí Taüll is an amazing place. I was there twice. They went big right from the start, and I believe venues are not allowed to do this anymore. But they went straight to a European Championships, followed by a World Championships in 22 and 23, and that's them just held their third consecutive World Cup, and they are another amazing a local organizing committee led by Carlos Hidalgo, and they're very organized, they're very open, they're very, there was a great sense of mutual respect between the International Federation and the local organizing committee. An amazing team all round on the ground, and it was really exciting for me because I hadn't been on the ground for, as I say, this is the 5th season I've been in the studio, so it was actually I was a little bit nervous, I have to say, because I haven't been on the ground mic holding voice for a long time. So I had a bit of a call with Christine beforehand, and she was like, you'll be fine. Anyway, it was really fun. It's a great place. The conditions were incredible. We had to delay the start of the sprint on the Saturday because the winds were crazy and a lot of snow came down, but it was mostly because it was just the winds were up to 80 kilometers an hour. So it was really wild. And because of that, they had to change the TV schedule and everything. So it was a real shame because we only got to show the semis and the final on the streaming. But yeah, it's a great course. They really know what they're doing, and the Spanish, I think I kind of still I'm surprised, really. I know I shouldn't be, but I'm still surprised by how enthusiastic the Spaniards are for this sport, because it's always seemed to me to be France, Italy, Switzerland. But the Spaniards are they're crazy for it. They love it. And the support there for the Spanish athletes, the Catalan athletes, is really, really special.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'll say a little shout out to my late friend Emma Roca, who some of the audience may know, but Emma was a really good friend of mine, starting when I was quite young in the early 2000s. But we competed against each other on the international adventure racing scene, and then really got to know her well. Emma and her family came and visited us here in Colorado many times for ultra runs, and we visited their family over there in Catalonia. And that was my first insight. Emma was on the national team for a while there for Skimo, and just how serious, how passionate. They have the youth programs, and it was super cool. Emma's spirit is with me, as with many of the viewers. She passed too soon after a battle with cancer, but that spirit is something really special for Skimo and the other mountain sports, and I think it's part of life there, and it's a really special place.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, well, let's get into these sprint races. Like I said, watching on TV, boy, it looked close. It looked dynamic in terms of the snow itself, the course, the downhill skiing. Very important passes, particularly on the downhill, which I always think is fun. Like, the race isn't over at the top. There's still things that can happen. So both semis and finals, men's and women, we saw that. Katie, you want to give us the results, and then we'll break them down?
Yes, I believe I have the correct results in front of me. Okay, in fact, if you want to have a look, this is live from straight from, you can see at the ceremony it was raining, so these are my actual results straight from the timing tent. And in the sprint, nice. In the final, Marianne Faton was in 6th. I'm going to go because this is how I read it in the thing. So Marianne Faton was 6th.
Oh, sweet.
In the sprint from Switzerland. Johanna Hiemer in her 3rd ever sprint final was 5th. Alba Di Silvestro 4th. Margot Ravenel of France 3rd. Giulia Murada of Italy 2nd. And Emily Harrop winner. As always, we can kind of say now. But what was really interesting is that those top 3 were the same top 3 from Courchevel. Slightly reversed. Yep. I think Margot was 2nd and Julia was 3rd. But just some really excellent racing. I mean, I said it last week, but Johanna Hemer has put in just so much work to this, and she's really absolutely on fire. So to be fifth in that final, to be in a final sprint final, 2 events in a row is extraordinary. And then in the sort of in the next tranche, the ones that didn't make it through to the final: Katia Mascarona, Tatiana Paller, Celia Perepese, Caroline Ulrich, Mariana Jigichkova, and the youngster Eva Matejovicova. So it's a really good, strong set of racing.
Here's what I noticed from the heats in this race, Katie. Again, just from the results, and for the listeners, in case you're not familiar, here's how this works in a World Cup. In the sprint race, in this case, there were 46 women and 60 men, and the first time athletes get on the course is in basically a time trial format. Athletes starting on their own and going for time, and the top 30 of those times make it into the heats, and then hopefully the semis and the finals. And if you're one of the top athletes, if you're Emily Harrop or Oriol Cardona Cole, or a number of these super podium contenders, they might be able to go a little easier in the qualifier and know that they'll make it through. I think for most athletes, and currently the Americans at this point, they're going all out in the qualifiers, hoping to get into the heats. And this is where, looking at the qualifiers, the notes I wrote down, again, for the Americans, Anna Gibson, so, still relatively new to Skimo. Solitude in December was her first World Cup. She came over here to Boí Taüll to do the sprint and the mixed relay with Cam Smith. We'll get into that later. But in the qualifier, Anna's time was 3:22. And I compared that actually to the finals. If we go all the way up to the finals, you mentioned Emily Harrop won. Again, as usual, Emily was at 3:01. And in the qualifier, Anna Gibson did 3:22. And actually, if you put that time into the final, just by time, she would have been fifth place in the final. So, the times that they're doing, it's putting her right in the mix. She didn't make it out of the qualifier, but she's not that far off. And then on the men's side, we had a similar case where
sorry to contradict you.
Yeah,
but she did. She was 21st overall. I see on my times.
Oh, she did in the qualifiers. You mean?
She was
okay.
She must have been. She must have qualified.
She made it into the heats. That's right, because I only saw the semis
she was in heat number 3
on TV. Okay, so she was. Yeah, let's say more. And how did she do in that heat?
So she qualified in a time of 3:35, and she did her heat. She was fifth in her heat in 3:22.
Oh, that was a 3:22. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
But she was, I think she was in quite a fast heat by the sounds of things. But yeah, she did qualify. So that was excellent. Sorry to contradict you there.
And then maybe no, thank you. I'm glad you noticed that. I didn't look close enough into the heats. Again, I'm used to watching them on TV. We'll look forward to more of them. And then on the men's side, I guess the top times for the Americans, again, they were doing splits that could have placed them in the finals had they made it to the finals, which they didn't. But for the American audience, that was Griffin Briley's best time was a 2:52. Arthur Whitehead's best, I believe, was 2:54. Cam Smith 2:55. Ian Clark 2:56. So really all very close to each other. And also going ahead to the finals, fifth place was a 2:59. So the point is they didn't make the finals, but there's a number of Americans who are in the mix as well. Well, other thoughts on that, Katie, or you can bring us to the men's results if you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard one to understand for me, as I've never been an athlete, so just that ability to the tactics of how hard do you go so that you're qualified but not completely cooked. I just find it extraordinary. It must take quite a very deep understanding of your own abilities and your how hard you can go and still have energy for the next one. So yeah, I think maybe a lot of the time it's an experience thing.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And that, as we bring on to the finals here, another winner who we've seen often, Thibaut Ansome, and he's a guy, if you watch him throughout the heats and even into the finals, his pacing and his gauging of being in the right position at the right time, which sometimes is in the lead from the start, but very often not. It's amazing what he does. So tell us about the men's final there, Katie.
Yeah, so in sixth place, Ot Ferrer, the youngster from Spain. Luca Tommazzoni from Italy in his very first ever sprint final was fifth. Nicolo Canclini from Italy, great to see him back in a sprint final. I had a quick chat with him and he said he's feeling so much better. He's finished all his studies and he's so happy to be feeling strong and on form again. In third place for the second sprint in a row, Nikita Filipov, individual neutral athlete. And then Oriol Cardona-Coll, beaten on home turf into second place by Thibaut Anselme, who actually is, despite the fact he has consistently been, top of the rankings, top of the sprint rankings and so on, he hasn't actually won that many sprints. He's just kind of consistently in the final on the podium, racking up the points. I looked and I think, 5 sprint wins is still a lot, but over the last 3 years, I think he's only won the sprint a handful of times. So it was so exciting, that last transition as they came out the top there and the get out of my way. It was just brilliant. It was so exciting. And so Thibaut got out. Was it Thibaut got out first or I overtook or something like that? It was brilliant. It's been all over my feed, that little snippet of them battling out of that fight, because you don't actually see that much overtaking on the downhill, but it was very exciting.
Yeah. This downhill passing, this is getting me excited again, looking ahead to the Olympics. What's gonna, it's not over at the top, folks. We saw in one of the women's semifinals, it was again on that first downhill corner. 2 Italian athletes made passes simultaneously. There were 4 athletes right together, and the 2 Italian women, it was Alba Di Silvestro and Giulia Morata, both made a pass on the same corner. Super exciting. And then, yes, the men's final here, my recollection, I think Oriol Cardona-Coll got to the top first, got out of the transition with a little lead, but Thibaut Ansome was right on his heels. And like you said, they're bumping, they're jostling, and right out of the transition, Oriol still had it. But that first corner, Ansome he cut it on the inside. It's an aggressive and risky move, but he got the lead and he held on. And I think, boy, that's got to be a big confidence builder for Ansome going into the Olympics here, especially to beat Oriol on the home soil. And Oriol, man, looking so good, so strong, so consistent. Good racing to come between these two and others.
For
Nikita
sure.
Filipov up there again. Like, man, the guy is looking awesome.
Yeah, really good. And actually, now that you come to mention it, that last transition, what we saw this weekend, and we'll come on to it more in the relay, but a lot, we talk about it a lot in the sprint and the relay, but just so much riding on those transitions. And Oriol had like the tiniest double tuck or something. I think it was like a double tuck of his skins into his pouch.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gave Thibaut that like tiny second to just, grab it. And but yes, Filipov looking so strong, and as I say, great to see those 2 Italians up, and because we haven't seen in the men's, we have not seen Italians up near the top of the sprint for a good while, so it was fantastic to see them as well.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
just having
absolutely.
a quick look at who else.
These transition folks, as you get into watching it more and more, it's kind of like the shooting in a biathlon where, an athlete is totally maxed out. You're breathing so hard that you can't see straight. You're doing this highly cognitive and highly physical movement that you've literally practiced thousands of times. And when you see someone like Oriole Cardona Cole making just a teeny little half-second mistake, I think that just shows, when you're breathing that hard and you're on the ropes, it's really hard to execute, and it's some to some extent, it's like how can they force each other to make these little errors? On the women's
Yeah.
side, again, we've seen Emily Harrop so dominant. She hasn't really been pushed to that point of making the mistakes yet. That may come, it may
Yeah.
not.
Oh, talking of equipment, I saw a new backpack that, we were talking last time about the Emily Hart's Miele backpack. I saw that.
Yep.
I saw quite a
Yep.
lot of them wearing the old school backpacks, but they've got like a balloon in it or something to just hold it open.
Yes.
I then saw
Yep.
there was, I think it was maybe Paul Verbniak. Don't quote me on this, but the sort of Dynafit ones they look like old school, but they're very flat, but they've got this huge loop for the skis. But then I think it was the
Yep.
Japanese athlete was wearing a North Face version of the Miele one, slightly bigger. I
Mm.
wanted to take a picture, but I felt like a bit of a stalker, so I didn't. Slightly bigger, but with that sort of very solid bit for resting your skis on. So it was just quite interesting to be on the ground and sort of see, like, what we talked about before, kind of this evolution in equipment.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I did not notice that pack on the Japanese athlete, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. The bigger pack with something inside to hold that form, so it's not flopping around. The Dynafit one, it has an angle that the skis lay against. Sounds like that other one was pretty similar. And even with these, I did see. I think it was maybe in the semis. Was it Julia Murata had just a little hold up there. She was putting her skis into the loop and then around the back. And she had, as you slide those skis into the loop, we're getting into the weeds here, folks, but the bindings they catch on the loop, and that's what allows the skis to, stay in that loop and swing them around and get the hook on so they stay against the back. I think one of her skis, it kind of slid past the loop, and you get the binding goes through the loop, and then it slides down. And she was able to fix it pretty quick. But even with this best stuff, sometimes there's still hangups. Sometimes you grab that hook
Yeah.
and something's happened and it's twisted and it won't come off. And these are the things like, if you want to win, especially in the finals, that probably can't happen.
Yeah, I feel like there were more small errors this weekend than I've seen in a while. And it could be, obviously I was on the ground, so maybe I saw more right up there,
Mhm.
but I feel like, yeah, you hardly see them at all anymore. And Julia was she was lucky she had a huge lead at that point. So, and she still managed to get out of transition faster than whoever was behind her. But yeah, and I think it was actually that she just managed to not hook it on anyway, we definitely saw a few of those in the mixed relay for sure. That's what it came down
Yes.
to.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into the mixed relay because I was going to use that as a transition as well. And I saw that a bit
Pardon the
for
pun.
Team USA. They weren't on. USA wasn't on camera quite as much, as I would have hoped in the mixed relay. But yeah, saw some stuff, got a little feedback, overview of the mixed relay as I watched. I saw a technical course. I saw a lot of snow and also unique and varied snow. I saw, especially on the second climb, some dynamic turns, that were kind of, some of them could have been kick turns. For the viewers, if you're not familiar, a kick turn it's like a switchback in the trail. It's a very sharp turn. And to do a kick turn, you're going up, you plant the outside ski, you take the inside ski and you kind of swing it around like a V. And then you do the same thing with the outside ski with a kick in there. And it's dynamic. It takes a teeny bit more time than not doing a kick turn. And some of these turns in there was almost a choice. Like you could do a kick turn on the outside, or you could try to kind of do just a partial sort of keep skiing up, but it was also look steep and slippery. And some athletes made good choices. Some of them slid around just a little bit. And yeah, it was exciting racing, exciting downhills. What did you think, big picture of the mixed relay, the course, the environment, et cetera, Katie?
Well, two things. One is that it is an incredibly difficult story to tell on the camera. And so when
Mm.
you say you don't see the Americans, even though they were for a while in sort of fifth, sixth position, it is an exceptionally difficult story to tell. And I knew that right from the start, but I had forgotten just how unbelievably exciting it is on the ground. It is ridiculously exciting. And it was such a privilege to be able to call it right there in the flesh, because it's like, and I'm like you, I'm deeply invested in how it all turns out. So I tend to get really, really excited. It really was a fantastic course because there was so much snow. They made a concerted effort to put the second downhill in off the piste. I mean, when I say off piste, it's not like, crazy high mountain off piste, but it was not pisted, and it is always much steeper in the flesh than you can see on the TV. And that second downhill on the mixed relay course was really steep and really rutted and quite fast, like flags, gates quite close together. And we saw more than one wobble. Thankfully, nothing worse than a wobble, but even the best were properly challenged when those skinny skis on that hard rutted snow. It was really exciting.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Audience, if you haven't seen it, go on YouTube, search ISMF Skimo, and you can find these recordings and go back and watch them. It really is exciting, and I was enjoying as a viewer. We had the studio commentators, but we could also, in this case, we could really hear your voice and the voice of the man. I couldn't tell if it was Spanish or
Tito,
Catalan. Uh, okay,
speaking
but you
Catalan.
two, Catalan. Okay, great. Yeah, I love it. And you two were going back and forth. In the one line I remember, it came through very clear. Katie Friend said, "This is not easy skiing, folks." And and I could tell. I don't know who it was, but someone was bouncing down the hill and sliding all around. And it just, yeah, it gives that perspective. And you got to remember these Skimo race skis. They're 65 underfoot skis, which they very thin. They do have metal edges, but this is not skiing with your downhill boots or your powder skis. It's kind of survival skiing, and you really set the scene there. Katie, what should we know about the results of the mixed relay from Boí Taüll?
Well, I'd like to touch briefly on the final B, if I may, because there was some
Yes, please.
really great skiing in there. I mean, Margot Ravenel and Pablo Giner are both going to the Olympics anyway. They're not competing in the
Yep.
mixed relay, but they basically just dominated that race from start to finish. They are both so, so strong. And they were up against some very serious, athletes, because for those who don't know, in the
Yeah.
A final, you can only have one team per nation. So France 1 and 2 and 3 were very, very fast, but only France 1 can go to the France A, France 1, whatever you want to call it, can go to the A final. So it's just really, really excellent racing from a lot of them. I'd like to make special mention, though, of the German team, the second German team of Helena Oehringer and Franz Eder. Helena Oehringer is going to the Olympics, I believe. As they do have a second woman, and she
I think so.
skied
Yeah.
really. They were fifth, so they weren't podium, but she skied so well. She was really, really strong. And I was very, very impressed with her. And it was just great because, the people above them in the top five were, Margot Ravenel, Caroline Ulrich, Celia Perez-Pessé, Marta Garcia Fares, wildly experienced athletes. And this
Yeah.
youngster, Helena Oehringer, just really held her own. I was so impressed by her.
Yeah. I
And
think she's
so
19, right?
she's a proper youngster. Yeah. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was really exciting to
Cool.
watch, actually. And then in the A final, well, let me just tell you who made it to the A final: Andorra, Japan, China, Norway, Poland, USA, Germany, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, Spain, and France. And in fifth place, Alba Di Silvestro and Michele Boscacci of Italy confirmed. These are going to be the mixed relay teams for the Olympics. We know that 100% now.
Yeah.
Johanna
Yeah.
Hiemer and Paul Verbniak of Austria, who I said to them, before the race, I said, no more chocolate medals, because I don't know if you know this expression, the médaille de
Yeah.
chocolat, 4th place. And that's like where they
Yep.
always are. And I said, no more, that's it, enough now. And they were like, yeah. Anyway, we're going to come back to that. But they were in 4th. Marianne Faton and Jon Kissler in 3rd from Switzerland. And then probably the most emotional and spectacular result of the day, even though it wasn't the winning one, was Ana Alonso and Oriol Cardona Call in 2nd place after her terrible accident and just back to the circuit. I mean, it was so emotional. It was honestly heartwarming, heartbreaking, all the things. It was amazing. But anyway, painting the slopes of Boí Taüll red, white and blue very convincingly this weekend were the winners, Emily Harrop and Thibaut Anselmet of France, who just put on a masterclass, basically.
Yeah, they really did have a solid gap, pretty much from the start. The race for second between Spain, Switzerland, Austria, and Italy was quite exciting with a lot of back and forth here and there. And you're right, Ana Alonso. Those who are not familiar, she was training out on the road bike in October, hit by a car, serious injuries, especially to her knee, and is still competing with a knee brace. I mean, this thing looks like the thing that NFL quarterbacks are wearing, and she's out there doing these uphill downhill turns, and particularly this technical skiing. Katie, I was thinking about her on the downhills, the off-piste stuff, bouncing around, sliding all over, jittering, and then those kick turns as well. It's one thing to do a straight forward and back plate of motion, but doing a kick turn really requires a lot of mobility and strains motions to the knee. Clearly, she was able to do it, and I was thinking, looking at her trajectory, even over the last few weeks, boy, that's got to be moving in the right direction here, looking
For
towards
sure.
the Olympics.
Absolutely. I mean, I watched her at one point coming almost straight towards me I think it was on her 2nd lap on the first descent. And the angle at which they had to come around the last gate to get into the transition to head up for the start of the 2nd ascent, I just watched her like come around there like,
Oh,
and I was
yep.
thinking, that's outrageous. Like, you are just with that knee brace on, just like that, the force that was like going through her knees, I was just blown away. It was extraordinary. So that was great. And there were tears and the crowd was going
Yep.
wild, and it was just amazing. It was so amazing. And yes, that battle between the not the top one, but the 4 afterwards was just so unbelievably exciting. It was ridiculous. And at one point, the Austrians were 2nd, then they were 3rd, and then what had happened was they had not, well, Johanna Hiemer had a slow transition and thought she lost about 5 seconds or so and was annoyed. But there were a few just kind of transition-y moments where you're like, oh, and the worst one was when they came in, I think just as the men were heading out for their 2nd lap, and it's all to play for. And Jon Kissler came in behind Paul Verbniak and Oriol, and just his ability to transition as a sprinter was just lightning quick.
I remember that
And
one. Yeah.
he just like hooned through transition and handed over to Mayan Faton. It must have been on the first one then. It was as the men came through. Sorry. Marianne Faton came through. Anyway, whatever it was just so exciting. And then they took off, and she has this ability to do the 2nd half of her 2nd lap. Crazy.
Yes.
Like, she's just saved 6th gear. So she came down as a surprise, and then they handed over. Anyway, it was so very exciting. And then Paul Verdniak headed out after Oriol Cardona Call, and I just went, oh man. Because Paul Verbniak is an amazing, excellent athlete, much improved. But if you're out of transition after Oriol Cardona Call, you've got a lot of work to do, like a serious amount of work to do. And so it was just, I'm sorry, I'm slightly wittering, but it was just so exciting. I was just like trying really hard to keep, sounding not too like a crazy screaming football commentator because it was just ridiculously exciting.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thanks for the perspective. I was just going to say, as I've gotten to know more of these athletes and listeners, get ready for the Olympics because we have an episode coming every day, interviews that we've already recorded with many of these athletes. After talking to them, they're all just such endearing people, and I can't help rooting for everyone. And I'm sure that's probably the same feeling you have. You've known most of these athletes on the circuit for many years, and when you know them all, it's kind of like you want everyone to win, but only there's only one top of the podium, and boy, this World Cup.
Yeah.
France, Emily Harrop and Thibaut Anselme, triple gold, like both sprints and the mixed relay. Boy, that has got to be a confidence
And the
builder
final
leading into the
B.
Olympics.
Yeah, and the final
That's right.
B
Yeah,
also.
not to mention, yeah.
The French team is absolutely on fire. Absolutely on fire.
Yeah. What did you? We had a nice brief TV interview where you put the mic in front of Emily and Thibaut, after their podium in the mixed relay. They look confident to me. What did you sense in their words, if anything, Katie?
Well, I have to admit that is the part of my job that I hate the most. I get so nervous. So nervous. It's crazy. It's so crazy. I'm just thinking, what if I ask a stupid question? What if I say something really ridiculous? And, and but I spoke to them briefly before and after. And yeah, they're just, I think you can tell they've had media training. They've all had media training because there's a high chance that they will all have to speak to the cameras. You can see them all over social media at the moment, especially within their own countries. There's a lot. And so while it is lovely and brilliant to get to speak to them, it's a little less raw than it used to be, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yep.
I'm not saying they are saying anything that they wouldn't normally say or they're being dishonest, but it feels a little bit less, it feels a little bit more professional, which is exactly how it should be. But you don't quite always get the sort of reaction that you would like to get. It's very measured. It's very, it's one step at a time. We're just concentrating on the now. We've got a new thing. But no, they're really excited. They're really feeling confident and on form, and and Emily's very chatty, and she very kindly stopped to have a chat with me at the qualifying times, and just to say hello and whatever. But Thibaut's quite an insular guy in my limited knowledge of him, but he had a big smile and oh my gosh, it was great, and can't wait to see you in Bormio and stuff. So it was nice. They seemed on very good form.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. No, that's great. Yeah, I think they look confident too. Audience, if you don't know Thibaut Anselme, check him out on Instagram. Super interesting guy, and you're right. I've approached him about interviews. He replied and declined politely, and that's fine. I mean, I think especially like with in the heat of the season, you got to shut out certain things, and it seems to me. One thing I love, we've heard in the Skimo world, but this may be news to some people, is his photography, his mountain photography. And he's, it seems to me, trekking, skiing up into the mountains, finding wild animals and waiting, getting these great shots like it's top level stuff, but it's also, I think, an expression of himself and an expression of many of these athletes. And we'll see this, in upcoming interviews with especially the Italians, Matteo Adelin. Like, these are mountain people, and this is what we're seeing here with Skimo for many viewers for the first time. It's just a short little view into a lifestyle and a way of being in the mountains that's really, really cool. And I'm glad the world's getting to see it more and more.
Well, do you know, you've just taught me something new. I had absolutely no idea he was a photographer. Says she who's supposed to know everything about everybody all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that he has, as you say, he's sort of just kind of, I wouldn't say shut himself down, but he's kind of shut out outside world a little bit. And I think it was Nikki La Rochelle was saying in the last broadcast that we did together that he's, and you can tell from his Instagram and everything, he's just kind of just gone into a bit of a bubble, I think. And I think Nikki said it was, just for the well-being. There's a lot going on, a lot of pressure,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and everybody at this stage. I mean, I've never been at this stage, obviously, but everyone has to do what's best for them. It's really important, and especially in this day and age where athlete well-being is at the forefront, as it should always have been, but wasn't always.
Yeah.
And I think it's really admirable, because I can imagine it's quite easy to say, yeah, I'll do this video for my sponsors, I'll do this for that, and I'll get involved in this, that, and the next thing. And if you're not comfortable with that, that could just add to your pressure.
Totally. Yeah. And it all adds up. And I think you're right. Do what's right for you. That's what I would tell an athlete that I'm coaching. And I think for many people, doing less, particularly shutting down the social media, shutting down any of these things that could create outside voices or comparisons or whatever, and just be you, and focus on what you're doing. I think that's a great thing, for sure. And
Yeah.
we'll get into we're going to have an Olympics preview episode coming out a little bit after that. We'll talk more about some of these things. But my final point here as we wrap up the Boí Taüll World Cup, Team USA. Some brief little reflections, highlights, etc. I didn't see them that much on screen. You probably saw them more. Cam Smith and Anna Gibson ended up in 7th place, just behind Germany, and I think I was really excited to watch them because we had, coming off of last season, they were on the verge of qualifying for the Olympics. And then in December at a World Cup in Utah, they got the win. Most countries didn't send their top teams, but boy, did USA look dominant. And I think they're still leading in World Cup points because of that. But this was Anna's first race in Europe this season. Like we already said, she had a competitive time in the sprint race. She and Cam both looking fit and looking strong. And to your point, Katie, about little let's call them sticky points, transitions, gear things. I think maybe the type of snow, sometimes the atmospheric conditions in terms of how humid, the temperature, like all of these things have a dynamic interplay into, are your skins sticking to the skis? Are your skins sticking to the snow? Do they have enough glide or too much glide or sliding? Or even things like, the interplay between sunglasses and buff and helmet. Are you getting any fogging? Are you getting sweat on the lenses? All these little things can add up. And that's, I had a brief interaction with Cam. One thing I saw on the screen, it looked like on his first lap, just above the diamonds, I think he had to stop for a second. Maybe his ski came off or something, which is kind of strange and unique. He said he had another thing where his skins were kind of stuck together more than expected. And again, this is, it doesn't take all day, but that could be an extra 2 seconds here and there. And then he said he also had some vision issues in terms of the glasses in the buff, whether that's condensation, sweat, those kind of things. Everywhere you go, there's unique conditions. And sometimes, you do the sprint, you do qualifying laps, but it's different when you're really going all out. And that's where those little things happen. Did you see anything else from Team USA, Katie?
Yeah, well, I did, and they were, I think, just that unfortunate blip for Cam let the German past him, let Finn Hirsch past him, just at the top of the diamonds. I'd actually forgotten that, but yeah, I was watching him, and I couldn't see what it was. It looked like skins. I don't think it was a ski, but I think it might have been skins. I don't know, but yeah, he had a bit of a stoppage there. I saw Anna quite, she was doing really well. They both were, it was just unfortunate for them that the people in front, the race in front was so intense that it was hard to sort of kind of look for me to look. But I was trying really hard to keep everybody up to speed with what was going on behind. And every time I looked sort of to the next pack, if you like, there they were. And Anna looked really, really strong. I thought, I've not seen her race before, other than on the screen. I know she looked really strong.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, these these races are so competitive that once, an athlete or a team loses a little bit, if you're off of that pack that you want to be with, it's pretty hard to get back. Not impossible, but like, man, if you really want to be in that group that's in the race, for a podium or a place. And, maybe we'll talk more in our Olympics preview episode about Team USA and what might be possible. But thanks for that reflection.
I have
Katie,
one more
anything else
American
on?
thing. I have
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
little bit of American info for you actually, because Brooke Scott was racing with Griffin Riley, but she wasn't on the start line on Sunday for the
Yes.
mixed relay. But the ISMF let Griffin go and do his qualifying lap anyway, just to give him the experience, to get him like
Yeah.
on the start line, and just they said you can go and do it, and he I saw him go. And then he went, yeah, I'll do it. And so off he went and got, right in with the in the thick of it. So I thought that was great. A
Excellent.
shame he didn't have a partner, but he did at least get the experience of the qualifying round.
Oh, cool. Wow. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Um, all righty. Well, any other final thoughts, Katie? We good to go on Boí Taüll here?
I think we're good to go.
Great. Well, thanks for chatting. As always, Katie. Sure, appreciate your time and your energy. Great to hear your perspective from being at the races, and we look forward to hearing from you a couple weeks from now on an Olympics preview episode.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Hey, folks, thanks as always for listening to Skimo Gold. Big thanks as always to our friend, Katie Friend, the voice of international ski mountaineering. Always appreciate Katie's expertise and her energy and her detailed knowledge of the sport and the athletes. Come back on February 17th. We are going to have an Olympics racing preview with Katie Friend. We will break down the medal contenders, the latest news, and what to look for in Bormio on February 19th and on the 21st when those races are happening. Please also check out, coming very soon, starting February 6th, it's the Olympics. And every single day during the Olympics, we're coming to you with new, fresh Skimo content. These are interviews with Team USA, with a bunch of Italian athletes, with Team Germany, Team Australia, Team Belgium, and so on and so forth. Commentators, coaches, everything you need. Get your Skimo stoke ready because we are coming at you big during the Olympics with Skimo Gold. Thanks as always to Palm Tree Podco. Working hard. We got a big push here, guys, in the Olympic production period. Anthony Palmer and team, I very much appreciate you. I'm Travis Macy. You can find me at travismacy.com. Endurance coaching, books, keynote speaking, and more. And let's leave it at that. We will catch you very soon for the Olympic Dispatch coming your way on Skimo Gold.